What's going on, my friends? Welcome on out to Behind the Energy podcast, where we dive into behind the scenes of DJing, entrepreneurship, and all the excitement in between. We got some friends, some cool people joining us, and a lot of fun stories. So without further ado, let's jump into Behind the Energy podcast. It is December 6th, 2021. And I'm sitting here with the one and only Kathy Hajeb. I got that right?
Yes, you got that right. You're one of the few that get it right, so maybe you got it right.
I am so stoked for this episode. I had mentioned my introduction to the Lassonde Institute in the previous episode, so you're going to have to listen to that, Kathy.
That's great. That's great.
But Kathy not only is a former professor of mine, at the University of Utah, but she's the executive director of the Lassonde Entrepreneur Institute, and I'd like to call her my friend as well.
Oh, absolutely. We ought to flip that around, right? Because all the hats I wear, I would count truly as a good friend at the top of that list. Mm-hmm. All the other stuff's just work, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm a little nervous. I agree. I totally agree. It's super exciting to have you in here, Kathy.
Well, I'm truly grateful. You know, I think building the friendships with people like you is why I love the work that I do. So thanks for this opportunity. It's going to be fun to kind of catch up a little bit, tell your story through my lens, maybe, right?
And your story. That's what we're going to do. To really set the table of the conversation, I want to jump back to how we met, and then I want to rewind even further, hearing about your experience at the U.
Great.
And how that grew into where it is today. So we had mentioned it previously, but it was summer 2016, and I was going to my University of Utah campus tour, starting school in the fall, and again, referencing the previous episode, I was only there for the Lassonde Institute. That was why I made the decision to go to college, and it's the only thing I was genuinely interested in. And it was time for the breakout session, and we got to go, where we wanted to go. We got to choose that, and it was time to go, hear about the Lassonde Institute, the Lassonde Studios opening this fall. And Kathy, we had never met prior to that, but she was facilitating that, I guess you could say, introduction to the Institute and the studios. And for those of you who haven't met Kathy or are not a University of Utah student, hearing her speak is a special thing, and you know what I'm talking about if you've been in her class before.
That warms my heart.
I don't want to dive into that here a little bit later, but something was sparked beyond what was already there, and I had the opportunity of chatting with you a little bit afterwards.
Well, and I want to give you the flip side to this, because the Lassonde Institute isn't typical college, right? So while we're part of the business school, we don't have a set major in entrepreneurship, didn't at the time. Didn't have that kind of structure that most students that are looking to college come for. We serve all students on campus, whether they're business or engineering or art students. Mm-hmm. So here we are, we're opening this big building. We've got recruiting goals and aspirations. We've gone from programs that students were participating in that they're doing out of their cars and, conference rooms and their backpacks. And we were really trying to grow that year. And so we were doing everything we could. And I was there at this Red, White, and You kind of campus tour, hoping someone would come and hear what I had to say. And then not only was I hoping they would come, but they would be interested, right? And so while you maybe didn't know the flip side of the story, is to have you show up with, I'm here just because I have found you on the website, I have found what your story is, gave me and our team the hope that what we were doing was going to be the right thing. I mean, it was just kind of a hope and a dream and a vision we all had. But it took a lot of shaking the trees to find people who shared our vision, shared our dream for this to be a student-run, student-governed culture,
Mm-hmm.
which is so different than anything else. And so I think that's why I have such a friendship, and our whole team does with you, Parker, is because you embodied what we visioned it could be. And it was like, oh my God, he just found us on the website and he's looked at some architectural drawings. And if he thinks it's cool, maybe we're onto something. So thank you for that. You didn't know the other side of that story.
Maybe a sliver. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this. Kathy, perhaps before we jump into your experience at the U and how your education grew to your introduction to the Institute and where you're at now, can you give maybe a little bit more of a almost like an elevator pitch of what the Lassonde Institute is and what the studios is for someone
Yeah.
who has not had the opportunity?
Yeah, and like that's the hard part,
Yes.
right? How do you do it in a 30-second interview, right? So it's an interdisciplinary place and a vision for helping students from all parts of campus see their academic majors, see their extracurricular activities through an entrepreneurial lens. And how do we meet students that are just thinking about it, curious about it, and help inspire a real motivation to put together some kind of a business venture. The same way we meet entrepreneurs like you. You came to college with a business. I'll never forget when you said, okay, I got to move in and I need a place to put all my equipment, right? So we were meeting students from all different places. And the Institute is there to really help students think about what are those little resources they need, whether it's a workshop with a little education, maybe a milestone grant to get your business to the next level. And it's a whole lot of programming that translates into dates, times, and places. And now it has evolved the last few years to align with some academic programs.
Yes.
We've got a master's in business creation, which is novel. You know, we've trademarked that name. It's beyond just administering business, the traditional MBA, to how do you manage a business that you create. So the Lassonde Institute is really, our vision is to be a one-stop shop for college students to really see how they can dabble in entrepreneurship and really become successful with it. And Parker, you're a testament to the work we did. I hope that we have helped you go from your first time on campus to really where you are today.
Thank you, Kathy. You've perfected that. I'm sure you've shared that a number of times. Oh gosh, I really don't know if I'm gonna get through this. Yeah, without going into too much detail, and I've shared this with a number of friends, but choosing the Lassonde Institute and the University of Utah is the best decision I've made in my entire life.
Well, you're still
And
young, man.
I realize that. I realize that. But I stand by that 120%.
That's great.
And
That's great.
it's because you and Anne and Troy and Dad and Alicia took a chance on me, and it's opened so many doors. And so,
Well, I have no doubt, and we have no doubt. Our vision is you're going to pay it forward, right? We've got a see one, do one, teach one philosophy. And so, you know, like we were teasing before this conversation started, you'll come back, you'll volunteer, you'll be wickedly famous someday and come back and share your wealth with us at the Institute. We're convinced of it, right? But you're part of our community, and the community starts with the students, and it does, I mean, it grows. I mean, we're still talking to students we've been working with for a number of years. And that's what makes it makes it fun to show up every day, is because we've got the current students that are trying to figure themselves out, but then we can really watch and celebrate those of you who've really been successful.
take a step back.
Yeah, and think about it.
It's considering from an outside perspective the growth that the Institute and Lassonde has had just in my time at the U, the moving parts behind that, and all that it takes for it to be a reality. The element of being fulfilled and seeing the bigger picture and the outcome of students participating and engaging in this community has got to be a good fuel for that rigorous schedule that you and the team are on. Was I able to make sense there, Kathy?
Yeah, but I'll tell you, it really is not as complex as you think about it, because it stands on a philosophy of just believe in what students are there for. I kind of tease sometimes and say we put like bumpers up like in the bowling alley, right? Kind of keep you guys in the game, and then just get out of your way. And that, I think, has made the Lassonde Institute the unique thing that it is we're not trying to hire a huge staff, and we're not trying to write policies and procedures about how to do this. What we're trying to do is make sure that students not just have a voice, but we are there in service of you, right? And that's unique in a college environment. Instead of us asking you to do things for us, we're just trying to match what you need and be able to provide those resources. And half the time we can't, and half the time that the real benefit we give is to explain the why behind we can't.
True.
And that's the learning that we hope all entrepreneurs will get, right? It's not like you can come to somebody and ask for a checklist of how to start a business, but we are a sounding board to kind of problem solve through that. And so we've got hundreds of students at different times in different phases. And my best work is just to hear you, to really listen to what's your struggle, what are you trying to accomplish, and then see how I can maybe connect you with someone in the broader network, provide a resource, but more than anything, just leave you with the feeling of you've got this, right? You've got this. Keep going, and let us know if you need some support along the way.
That, as you're describing this is taking me back to that first conversation we had and the two classes I had the opportunity of being in with you. It makes so much sense. I knew this prior to this conversation about you. That's a talent and a gift that you have, Kathy, that I felt in my life. I think it's appropriate time. We have a lot to talk about, but not a lot of time to maybe talk a little bit more about the academic end and jump it back to your first experience at the University of Utah.
Oh, my story.
Your story, if I remember correct, you graduated undergrad in business.
Business management.
Business management, okay.
And I tell this story in kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of way. You know, I would have been an English major if I had an English scholarship, right? But the business school gave me a scholarship, and I was good at school. So I came to the university, got my undergrad in business, kept my scholarship for 4 years, got good grades, and had a real epiphany in my own experience when I was ready to graduate. I had a dear friend who was a petroleum engineering student, and she said to me, "So, Kathy, business of what?" And here I am at the end of 4 years. And for anybody who goes to college, you know that it's beyond just the money. It's the time and the energy that you put forward. And I'm questioning, I don't know the answer. Business of what, right? I had not done that soul searching to figure that out. And so did what most college students do. Got a great job, worked my way through the corporate ladder. You know, I was back in industry when there still was a corporate ladder to climb, you know, back in the day when I was first working, was successful there. And then had an interesting experience where the leadership team, I worked in the natural gas industry.
Yes.
And the leadership team said, you know, for you to be a senior leader or to progress and be promoted, you need to be an engineer. And so my answer was, well, okay, then I'll go get an engineering degree. So I came back to the university, got my master's in engineering.
That was a very short time frame in between, because you were mentioning it was three months or a semester?
Yeah, well, my aspiration was you finish your undergrad and you're convinced that you're exhausted and you just want to read some books for pleasure. And
oh, no.
This was in June.
Don't tell me this.
And I was like, oh, I'm just exhausted. And yet I liked school. I liked learning. I mean, it's a really fun environment to be in. And, you know, we'll get to this part of my story of when this comes back full circle. But so I went over the summer and I just thought, wow, you know, I always knew I wanted to get a graduate degree, but I thought I was going to wait a year or two. And it just came together. I started back in the fall. I worked full time. I went to school at night
While doing your master's.
while doing my master's. Yeah, so I took classes at night, 4 nights a week, 6 to 10, and then I worked all day long. And those were 2 grueling years. They were long, long years. But so then I had continued to work in this company, work in this industry that had motivated me, I guess, if that's the right term I want to use, to progress, and worked for that company for 20 years. Had my own kind of version. I was 40. It was the year 2000. I kind of laughed that I think the numbers were kind of round, and so I thought, okay, 20 years, year 2000. I thought I wanted to be a consultant, so I left that company. Went out to do some consulting for a civil engineering firm, and hated it. Absolutely hated it. And it took me 2 years to realize that that's not who I was. And at the time, I had adult children, young adult children. I guess they were getting kind of early college age children. And they were trying to figure out what they wanted to do with their lives and what they wanted to major in. And that was my catalyst to come back to the university.
Interesting. I have very little knowledge as far as consulting goes, but whether that be one-on-one or with a team or, a larger organization business, back to that gift, that talent that you have to be able to help individuals figure out a different path or that passion. It seems as if there's overlap between that gift and that talent that you have and what you're doing as a professor at the University of Utah and what a consultant could have been. But is it more specifically the students and the university atmosphere? What was the difference?
What was the catalyst?
Yeah, what was the difference?
So I think I was the typical business student that always wanted to be a consultant, right? Thought I had great advice to share with the world. Consulting's hard work. You're not only serving clients at a billable rate, but I was managing a team, and to keep my entire team billable, market the additional work.
Sorry, was this your own company?
No.
Oh,
I
okay,
I worked for a civil engineering firm headquartered out of California, and loved the work we did, but it wasn't the topic that lit my own fire, right? So here I'd worked for 23 years in the natural resource industry, and I had this moment of, I don't think I like this topic, right? And I had spent my entire life doing what seemed reasonable, right? Go to college, get good grades, get a good job, get a promotion, do all those things, and hadn't figured out that key step of what my friend in petroleum engineering said to me: business of what? What's the topic?
You remember that conversation?
Oh, it was
Clear as day.
a marker on me. And
Wow.
and it was that topic of, well, what are you investing day in and day out? What's the topic of the work you're committed to? And I think that's what drew me back to the university, and that is my thread to entrepreneurship, is I think every single student that decides they want to launch their own business has to go through that kind of alignment with, God, am I putting in my 10,000 hours? Am I putting, the blood, sweat, and tears of something that I don't really love? Or am I doing something that not only fuels me, but meets a market need, right? I'm able to really create an impact and create value for others.
Please forgive me. I want to backstep a little bit, because we did skip a little bit from where we're now teaching and working directly with students. So the time in which your kids are now going to college, making these decisions, figuring out what they want to do, and answering or trying to answer that question.
Right.
Sometimes I feel like I'm still trying to answer that question.
We all are, by the way. It's something you never really get fully answered.
Full clarity on. Kathy, what was then the next pivot point?
So I don't know if there was a real pivot point as much as
Stepping stone or growth?
For me, I did the soul searching of, where do I want to work? What kind of place do I want to work? And that's what drew me back to the university. They're in the we're in the business of self-improvement, right? And so I worked to find myself back on the college campus. I started in an administrative role in the business school and had a real nice opportunity to align with the work that was happening at the Lassonde Institute. It was happening. I was working in the vice president's office at the time that focused on commercialization. At the time that the Lassonde Center was becoming an institute, we were imagining Lassonde Studios. I was at the right time at the right place.
Was the house physically a part of the institute
The
at the
Lassonde House
time?
up in Fort
Yeah,
Douglas.
at the time or no?
Yeah.
It was. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. But we were just starting to imagine what the studios could be. And so I was really fortunate to be able to travel all over the country, look at maker spaces, incubator spaces, and pull what I think is the best of all of that. I was on the architectural design team. Troy and I would spend many a day in the trailer on the construction site, pulling the programming and pulling the building together at the same time.
The the conversation started early 2000s of the Lasanne Studios. And
Well, the conversation, so we're celebrating our 20th year.
Yep.
So the Lassonde Center started its very first program in 2000, 2001, when we were matching graduate students together with faculty inventors, and they were spinning out commercialization plans.
don't tell me the name. Oh,
You think in the Lasanne New Venture Development
New Venture
Program?
Development.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah.
Thank you.
First program. And so, I mean, we've been running programs for 15 years
Yep.
before the studios came to be. And I think that's part of the reason the studios is so successful is because we knew what we wanted the place to be and to do because we'd watched all of the students do it in classrooms and in their, yeah, they were working out of the trunk of their cars, schlepping around prototypes and weird,
Yeah.
you do what you got to do to make stuff happen, right? And so the studios really helped pull all of that together.
Do you ever, pulling off campus for the day, or leaving the studios, like to go home, and it just hits you, like soaking it all in, like this is a reality. This is something that you, Troy, and
Yeah.
many hands.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, Parker, the thing that inspires me the very most is when I get a student that says to me after the fact, I finally understand the why behind what I'm doing, right? So many of us go to college just because we think that's the right thing to do, and we don't kind of turn that page and take ownership over the things we're learning. We don't take our own ownership over our own education. And the thing that really touches my heart is when I have a student go, okay, now I get this, right? Now I am aligned with what I'm studying, with what I want to do. And I'm not just in a place having a good time, right? I've been able to light my own personal curiosity about something, and I'm in this. I'm in this. That's the secret sauce for me.
The secret sauce, ladies and gentlemen. I think I knew that, or knew a sliver of that.
Which is why
The work that you get to do is so rad, and to see how many lives it is inspiring and changing for the better. Kathy, I can't even fathom how that
and
hits you at some
Parker,
time.
you've given me an opportunity sitting here, right? We are not on campus. We are away from campus. You're finished with your academic studies, and we still have a chance to have this conversation. And I had a student reach out to me that graduated 4 or 5 years ago. That's the benefit of getting old, right? Is you have this legacy of all these people in your world. And it's made my life magical. And it's, the building's cool. By all means, the building's cool. Lassonde Studios is cool. But the cooler part is the fact that the students come together and they're curious about stuff and they're motivated to make stuff happen. And they're really bold and brave about saying they screwed some stuff up and they had stumbles along the way. Where else do you get to sit around and talk about the failures you had and get the support from others to work through those? We found a place.
For like those who haven't stepped foot in the studios or come across some of what some of the magic that happens in the institute. Like there's an energy in the air. You can feel it when you walk in that building, because I
You
think
don't think it's just the coffee?
it it definitely is partially the coffee. I did have my
Don't think
fair
it's just
share
the
of the
coffee.
coffee. But there is definitely something unique about the students that are very attracted to the institute and do get involved consistently throughout their time at the U.
Well,
I think.
it's because you're curious and you take an ownership, right? Now, we do some silly little things like you'll never see rules posted on the wall. We go the extra mile to help people understand why we do what we do. And it's part of that magic. But it's a student space. I'm lucky to be part of it.
A lot of what we've chatted about thus far, Kathy, I think is very much overlapping with what you do in the classroom, but we didn't get to talk about that. Can you give me and the listeners just a little sliver of what you get to do
Oh,
as a
I'm really
professor?
lucky. I get to work with the first year students, and my goal is to help students see that all of us are really just trying to add value in the world. And that's all business is really about. It's just trying to add value in the world. And if you can find a way to, whether you're going to work for somebody else like I do. I mean, I'm really fortunate. I've never launched my own startup company, but I consider myself incredibly entrepreneurial as I do the work that I do at the University of Utah, because I take an owner's mindset, right? And if students can embrace and wear the hat of the owner of the company they work for or the owner of the company they're launching themselves, and see things through the lens of what problems can I solve? How do I create value? How do I troubleshoot? How do I make processes more efficient? All of that is, in my mind, what's really part of an entrepreneurial mindset. So I get to work with first year students to start to think about that and then put it together in a plan. And they hopefully, out of that first class, will continue to work on that plan. Align the classes they're taking. If they're an engineering major, why are they an engineering major? What skills are they trying to acquire along the way in their academic program that'll all help line up with that value creation concept that they have for themselves. And then I'm fortunate to teach a capstone class where students that have done this work come back, build a website, and tell their story, where they're able to really take the work that they're doing for others, the work that they're doing through their own ventures, and become more than just a resume, but how are they pulling all of that together to really create value for other people? Right? So the work you're doing with the podcast, what all student ventures are, how do you flip that over so they really truly are sharing their value creation through their work?
I'm jealous. It's got to be an incredibly fulfilling job. You wouldn't even call it job. I don't think that's an appropriate word.
I know.
That's not a word. That's an appropriate word to use.
Lucky to do it.
Whether or not this makes it on the video or the podcast, Kathy, I would, I mean, at 110%, like, I was not going to go to college. And
look at you now.
if it weren't for Mohan Sudabatula telling me, you need to check out the Lassonde Institute. And if it weren't for you and Anne, it would not be a reality. And,
So here's maybe my aspiration for you. And I have no doubt you'll do this. You'll pay it forward, right? There'll be another young person in your world that will be just needing that you've got this, show up, and if you can pay it forward, then our work was worthwhile. Pay it forward.
I literally have a few goals written on pieces of paper on my mirror. And one of them is
You're still doing that sticky note thing.
Give back to the Lassonde Institute.
Yeah.
I'm forgive me. I'm an emotional person, but it changed my life, and it's the best decision I made in my life. And
That's great.
But
Parker, don't pay it back to the studios. Don't pay it back to the institute. Pay it back to the next generation. There's a lot of young people who just look at you and see what you're doing, and you maybe don't realize the role model you are, but you are. So pay it forward to that young person that you can cross paths with.
I'm gonna take that with me.
Yeah, pay it forward.
Just Kathy, out of everything we talked about, just know I'm forever grateful, and
You're a dear
it
friend.
means more than
You're
you
a
know.
dear friend. You're a dear friend.
So thank you.
Okay, so when you're
Thank you.
61, you're going to come call me back, right? Am I going to be around? I got a few years to get there. Until you're
Round
61.
2, baby. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's fabulous. Thank you for the opportunity.
Kathy, Hajeb, my friends, I couldn't be more grateful.
This could be fun. It's fun for me. Thank you.
This is super cool and so exciting. Please, if you're at all intrigued, go look up the Lassonde Institute, Lassonde Studios. There's so many great resources and opportunities, and it changed my life. I'm so grateful. Kathy, thank you.
Thank you.
Behind the Energy podcast, I'm emotional, I'm grateful, and I will see you next week for the next episode.